Welcome to 15 Minutes With. Today we have Tess Gerritsen on a Meryl Moss Media production. Tess Gerritsen is one of America's leading crime fiction authors. She's best known for her Rizolli and Isles series. She is now promoting book number 12 in the series. And if you haven't seen the show, I know it's been off for about a year, but go back. Buy all the seasons. It's great. Rizolli and Isles on TNT. I love the series, so it's one of my favorites. I love crime mysteries. And today we're here with Tess Gerritsen. So welcome, Tess.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Okay. My first question is this new book, I Know a Secret. What are Jane Rizzoli and Maura Isles up to, and what can we look forward to?
Well, they encounter a crime scene which is really quite shocking. It's a young woman who's a horror film producer. Mm-hmm. She looks like she's asleep in bed, except for the fact she has her eyeballs in her hands. So they think, oh, is this just some weirdo killer? And then shortly thereafter, there's another body of a young man with arrows in his chest. The common link is that Maura cannot figure out how they died. She just knows that all these things happen post-mortem.
Oh, wow. So this is book 12 in the series, and you know these characters well because you've written about them so much. Is it difficult to come up with new stories? Like, what inspired this particular story?
Every story comes with its own backstory, and this one started off when I was traveling in Italy on vacation. And I'd been visiting a lot of art museums and seeing a lot of sacred paintings everywhere. You know, they're always the same subject. It's the Madonna and Child or the Saints. And I was getting kind of bored until I picked up a book called How to Read a Painting. And it talked about the symbolism of sacred art, how you can identify a saint by little symbols that are found in the painting. For instance, if you see a woman with an ointment pot, you know that's Mary Magdalene. If you see anybody holding a palm frond, you know they died a martyr. So I thought, what if a killer did the same thing as those painters were doing? Used a crime scene as if it were a painting and implanted symbols in a message meant for somebody.
Oh, wow. So when you approach a new book like this for this pair, you've really taken the time in terms of crafting their backstories, especially Maura's backstory, which is really interesting, and her finding out who her parents were. Why do you think that really connects with your readers? This not just the mystery that they're solving, but the backstory of the characters. Why do you think that connects with readers?
Well, that is actually what is primary for the readers, are the characters. They want to know what happens to them next. I think it has to do a lot with the partnership between Jane and Maura. And that's probably why the TV show is so popular. It's really all about women working together and trusting each other in a real life work situation, which is how a lot of us work. I mean, when I was in the medical profession, most of my colleagues that I really closely worked with were women. And you learn to trust their judgment. So I think it's this idea that, yes, women trust each other that really resonates with female readers. And it's also that you've seen these women change over the course of 12 books. Jane started off really kind of a bitch. She wasn't very likable. And then you saw her get happy as she got married and had a child, even though she's struggling with all these other professional and personal issues. You get to know her struggle, and you get to appreciate that about her.
Yeah, she definitely becomes a more warm character over the course of 12 books.
Once you get past the
tough exterior.
The tough exterior, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the fact you have two women here working together. It is very rare that you actually see books where women are not, they're working in tandem. They're not at each other's throats. And that's the partnership that you really established with Rizolli and Isles, right?
Well, it's funny that it was never a conscious thing for me. I'm going to do something different. It was just that it evolved in its own way, where you have a medical examiner and you have a detective, and they both have a same goal, which is to catch a killer. Yeah. And I think that as a reflection of real life, most of us don't have conflicts every day with everybody else around us. So the fact that it's unique or it was one of the first is rather puzzling to me.
Right. You know, one of the things that I find interesting about your books, and if people have not read them and they pick them up, this is one of the things that they'll be interested in noting is that you are very, very detailed in terms of how you describe a crime scene and autopsy, and you don't really kind of like gloss over what people would see on that. Is that from your medical background?
Well, I think that when a good writer really makes their reader fall into this new world,
Hmm.
and in order to really immerse yourself in this world, you have to know what the characters are seeing and feeling and smelling.
Right.
So all these little details that will be important to them are going to be important to the reader. And I don't think it's possible to look at a crime scene without being really detail oriented, or to do an autopsy without paying attention to little things
Right.
which may be the answer.
Right. And it's always those little things that people tend to overlook in like any kind of murder mystery, especially that end up coming back in the end. It's like, oh yeah, that's what happened. That's, what kind of led us to this path. So, Rizolli and Isles, have you always knew that this was going to be a series, or was it originally planned as just a standalone?
It was planned as a standalone. The very first book in which Jane appears is the surgeon,
Mm-hmm.
and she's not a main character in that story. She's just a secondary character who I I had every intention of killing before the end of the book.
Oh.
So, you know, by the time I got to the end of the book and her death scene,
Mm-hmm.
I had learned to like her. I had learned to respect her, and I thought, it's just so mean of me to kill this woman who's worked so hard. And really, Jane is the one who cracks the case.
Right.
Why kill her? So I let her live, and then I wanted to know what happens next. So I wrote the book, The Apprentice, and that's where I introduced Maura Isles, and she was just a secondary character.
Right.
And when I finished The Apprentice, I thought, I want to know more about Maura. So I wrote a third book, and that's how the series was born.
Just wanting to know more, your own
Wanting to
memory.
know not only who these people are, but what happens to them next. And I really think that's why people read the books. They want to know what happens to them next.
Yeah. And so, I Know a Secret is the latest one. It came out August 10th of this year.
Hmm.
And you are promoting that, but are you writing anything else? Is there anything new on the
Yes,
horizon?
I'm writing a book right now that is not Rizolli and Isles. It's another thriller, but it
Mhm.
may or may not involve a ghost, a sea
Oh,
captain's ghost. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm sort of skirting that line between paranormal and reality, and it's not only just a touch of paranormal, but it's also very sexy.
oh. So is this where you're going to continue writing just like crime mysteries? You've done the romance suspense before, romantic thriller. Is this where you really feel comfortable?
I do feel comfortable with suspense. I think it's the thing that I tend to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, I'm also pursuing other projects now. It's not just books. Now, my son and I are working on a feature documentary about pigs,
Oh.
and it's turning into quite an interesting journey into the history of humans and pigs.
Hmm, interesting. So I want to thank you again for talking with us. Your new book, again, I Know a Secret, the 12th book in the Rizzoli and Isles series. Go get it. It's excellent. And we want to thank Tess Gerritsen for spending 15 minutes with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.